Kim Taehyung, a 34-year-old man, is the only son of the Kim family, one of the most respected families in South Korea. He also holds the prestigious position of President of South Korea. Taehyung is the perfect blend of cold elegance, class, and undeniable charm. People utter his name more often than they mention God's in a single day. But he isn't a cruel politician, rather, he's a man of wisdom and integrity. He serves as a role model for the youth, and every parent dreams of their son becoming like him. He pays attention to even the smallest details and has initiated campaigns like Hunger-Free Nation to ensure that no one in the country goes to bed hungry. The poor, the needy, and the jobless look up to him as if he were some sort of savior. Across the nation, girls have declared him the national heartthrob. Many, from the media and political circles, try to flirt with him, but none of that matters to Taehyung. He is utterly devoted to his one and only love, his wife. His wife, Y/N Kim, isn't just his partner, she is his world, his love, his possession, and his obsession. No, she isn't his first wife. His first marriage was a business arrangement between the Kims and the Kong family, a cold contract that led to a drunken mistake. That mistake resulted in the birth of Ji-hoo, a spoiled brat, thanks to her mother's influence. While Taehyung does love his daughter, he distances himself from his ex-wife as much as possible. He knows that Y/N despises sharing the same air as her, let alone seeing her. Talking about his wife, Y/N Kim, a 25-year-old social worker, she holds a Bachelor of Social Work degree. She followed in the footsteps of her mother, who came from a middle-class family, while her father was from a well-off background. Despite the differences in their upbringing, her mother ensured that Y/N grew up to be a wise and compassionate woman. Talking about his wife, Y/N Kim, a 25-year-old social worker, she holds a Bachelor of Social Work degree. She followed in the footsteps of her mother, who came from a middle-class family, while her father was from a well-off background. Despite the differences in their upbringing, her mother ensured that Y/N grew up to be a wise and compassionate woman. After completing her degree at 23, Y/N began working at her mother's NGO, which focuses on supporting women who have fallen victim to various forms of abuse. Inspired by Taehyung's dedication to his country, she made it her mission to reach out to him. When she finally did, she demanded that he implement stronger protections for women, provide them with more job opportunities, and promote their independence and education. Taehyung, who had fallen for her at first sight, kept inviting her for meetings under various pretexts. Over time, Y/N found herself developing a crush on him as well. Eventually, Taehyung confessed his feelings, and Y/N accepted. They have now been happily married for a year. YN, who was smiling to herself willow-cutting veggies, suddenly gasped as two being hands wrapped round her waist. Y/N smiled to herself as she cut vegetables, humming softly. Suddenly, she gasped as two strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind. Y/N, what are you doing? Taehyung, hugging my wife. He nuzzled into her neck. Y/N, Aish, stop, that's ticklish. She giggled as he continued nuzzling. I thought you were going to come home late. Taehyung, why would I come late? Y/N, you just won your second term as president today, and you took the oath. I thought you'd be out celebrating with your friends. Taehyung, what kind of idiot goes out to party when he has a beautiful wife waiting at home? Y/N blushed. Taehyung, so, what's for dinner? Y/N, I don't know. Taehyung, huh? Then why are you cutting these vegetables? Y/N, I figured I'd think of something while I was chopping them. Taehyung laughed. Taehyung, genius plan. Suddenly, Y/N broke free from his embrace and turned to face him. Y/N, Taehyung. He tucked a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. Y/N, I've been thinking about something. Taehyung, what is it? Y/N, is it possible for you to make self-defense classes mandatory in all schools for girls? So they can learn to protect themselves. She bit her lip nervously. Taehyung. People think I'm the one running the country, but they don't know the real truth. He teased. Y/N, just answer me, will you? Taehyung, is there anything you ask of me that I can refuse? Y/N wrapped her arms around his neck. Y/N, is that so? Taehyung, any doubts? Y/N, then why don't you give me what I want most? Taehyung frowned, but quickly understood. Taehyung, Y/N. I've told you, we'll think about it later. Y/N, I've been hearing the same thing for the past 4 months. She tried to push him away, but his grip around her waist tightened, careful not to hurt her. Taehyung, Y/N, we don't need a baby right now. Besides, we have Jihoo. Y/N, she's not mine, Tae. She's yours and Yeri's, Taehyung, why can't you accept her? Y/N, accept her. Tae, I've tried, but she's so spoiled. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but the way she talks to the house staff is unacceptable. And when I scold her for it, her mother comes in with her "stop bullying my daughter" speech, shedding a few crocodile tears, and then you end up being upset with me. I don't like it. That's why I stay away from her. Taehyung sighed because her words, though bitter, were true. Y/N, Tae, I want my own baby, someone I can teach the difference between right and wrong without it being seen as a free lecture. Someone I can scold without being accused of bullying. Why? Why don't you want a baby with me? Her eyes began to well up with tears. Taehyung sighed because her words, though bitter, were true. Y/N, Tae, I want my own baby, someone I can teach the difference between right and wrong without it being seen as a free lecture. Someone I can scold without being accused of bullying. Why? Why don't you want a baby with me? Her eyes began to well up with tears. Taehyung's eyes widened. He never imagined she would feel this way. Taehyung, no, baby. He quickly wiped away her tears. It's nothing like that. I love you so much, and I want so many babies with you. Y/N, you're lying. She cried. Taehyung, no, I'm not. He hugged her, kissed the top of her head, and comforted her until she calmed down. Y/N. You're only 25, not 45. You have dreams, baby, you want to do so much for the women of this nation. I want to see you achieve those dreams, and then we'll have babies, lots of them, as many as you want. Y/N looked up at him. Y/N, really? Taehyung, yes, baby. Y/N, what if I want 10 babies? Taehyung, oh, we can have 11 if you want. Besides, I love the process. He teased with a playful grin. Y/N blushed deeply and buried her face in Taehyung's chest. Taehyung, but what about dinner? Y/N, let's order in. She grinned. Taehyung, how about I take you out for a candlelight dinner? Y/N, no thanks. I don't want to be surrounded by paparazzi. President Nim, what are your future plans? President Nim, the whole nation is celebrating your win. How do you feel? Taehyung, okay, I got it. What do you want to eat? Y/N, anything, husband. It's your day. Taehyung pecked her nose. After dinner, they enjoyed some intimate time together and then went to sleep. Read more. Next morning, living in the National Defense Building, the official residence of the President of South Korea, you're surrounded by numerous helpers, which can feel frustrating as your personal space seems invaded. But Taehyung has set a rule: no one is allowed near your rooms. Your room is quite spacious, with a large living area, a balcony, and a huge wardrobe, making it feel like your own little apartment. You woke up and found no one around. Checking the time, you realized it was already 10 a.m., which was confusing since Taehyung had mentioned that his schedule started at 4 p.m. and he planned to spend the morning with you. After freshening up, you went downstairs and encountered Yeri and her not-so-innocent 10-year-old daughter. Y/N, addressing the head maid, where is Tae? Head maid, young lady, he's in his home office. Y/N, does he have any guests? Yeri, can't you see we're guests here? Y/N, I mean, did he invite any guests, or do people come uninvited? Yeri, I am his ex-wife. Y/N, exactly, ex-wife. I am his wife. You know the difference, right? Yeri, I'm the mother of his only child. Flashback, Y/N, breathing heavily weight, no protection. Taehyung, you wanted a baby, didn't you? He said as he continued. Flashback ends. Jihoo, he's my dad, and this is his home. You're just living here for free. You should go back to your real place. Y/N felt saddened by the behavior of the 10-year-old, realizing how much upbringing matters. Head maid, Miss Jihoo, that's not a nice way to talk to an elder. She had worked for the Kims for over 20 years. Jihoo, oh, now a poor, smelly, and disgusting old woman will tell me, Kim Jihoo, how to talk. Y/N, Jihoo, behave yourself. Yeri, how dare you bully my. Y/N, shut up. Bully your daughter instead. Look at her, Yeri, look at your upbringing. Rather than teaching her manners, you're backing her up? You're ruining her. Yeri, huh? Now a woman like you is going to teach me how to be a good mother? Why don't you become a mother first, since Taehyung doesn't want a baby with you? Jihoo, obviously, mom. Daddy is a smart man. Why would he want a baby from a WH0 like her? Taehyung, JHU. Y/N, shut up. Bully your daughter instead. Look at her, Yeri, look at your upbringing. Rather than teaching her manners, you're backing her up? You're ruining her. Yeri, huh? Now a woman like you is going to teach me how to be a good mother? Why don't you become a mother first, since Taehyung doesn't want a baby with you? Jihoo, obviously, mom. Daddy is a smart man. Why would he want a baby from a WH0 like her? Taehyung, JHU. All the women flinched as Taehyung paced toward them, his expression darkening with every step. Taehyung, in a cold, firm tone, what did you just say? Yeri, stammering, Taehyung. Taehyung, cutting her off, I'm talking to my daughter. He looked directly at Jihoo, his eyes burning with anger. Jihoo. Y/N's eyes widened, shock written all over her face. Was this really a 10-year-old speaking? A child? Taehyung, gritting his teeth, how much poison have you fed her against Y/N? Yeri, quickly, no. She's just saying what she observes. Jihoo's face twisted in anger as she noticed their joined hands. Jihoo, furiously, see, Dad. This WH0 is a Taehyung, shouting, JHU. His hand shot up in anger. Y/N and Yeri gasped in shock as Jihoo quickly ran to hide behind her mother. Yeri gave Taehyung an incredulous look. Taehyung ignored her completely, just like how you all ignore me when I tell you to like and comment. Taehyung, firmly, Mr. Min. Suddenly, from the background, Mr. Min Yoongi stepped forward, his presence unnoticed until now. Taehyung, file the case. I want sole custody of my daughter. Yeri's eyes widened in shock. Mr. Min Yoongi, nodding, yes, President. Yeri, panicking, you gave me full custody of her willingly. Taehyung, coldly, yes, because I didn't know how your upbringing would turn out. He pointed at Jihoo, who didn't even try to cry. Yeri, desperate, you can't do this. Taehyung, calmly, I can and I will. He turned to Y/N, his eyes softening with affection. Y/N, you're okay with this, right? Y/N, smiling, reminding him of their wedding vows, for better, for worse, till death do us part. Yeri, angrily, I'm not okay with this. Taehyung, shrugging, nobody asked. He paused, then added, by the way, your father's company is on the verge of bankruptcy, and looking at Jiho's behavior, you're not fit to raise her. She needs discipline, and I'll handle that myself. Yeri, furiously, she's my daughter. I refuse to let you take her. Taehyung, unfazed, let the court decide. Yeri, screaming, no. Nobody can take my daughter away from me. Mr. Min, calmly, President Nim, should I propose joint custody? Taehyung, firmly, no. I want sole custody. I don't want this woman anywhere near my daughter. Yeri, shouting, I am her mother. You can't take my daughter away from me. Who do you think you are? Taehyung, coldly, I'm her father, and yes, I will. Yeri, losing control, what father? You're not her real father. Her real father is Jason, and she stopped, realizing her mistake. It was in that moment she knew she had messed up. Yeri glanced at Taehyung, who appeared unnervingly calm. Y/N, on the other hand, was utterly shocked. Taehyung, calmly, thank you, Yeri, for finally admitting it. Yeri, panicking, no, Taehyung. I didn't mean it. Please, listen to me, Taehyung, cutting her off, enough. You've said enough. You've just signed your own fate. Y/N's heart was pounding in her chest, her mind racing to process the bombshell that had just been dropped. She looked at Taehyung, whose expression was unreadable, yet his eyes spoke volumes. Y/N, whispering, disbelief in her voice, Tae, you knew. Taehyung nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving Yeri, who was now visibly trembling. Taehyung, do you remember the day you asked me who Jiho resembled? I told you she didn't look like anyone in my family, and Yeri quickly said she resembled her aunt? Y/N, nodding. Yeah, I remember. Taehyung, and you said she looked more like Mr. Kang's secretary, Jason. That caught me off guard because it was true. 3 months ago, when Jiho came to visit, I took a sample of her hair for a DNA test. The report came back after a week or two, confirming that she is not my daughter. He paused for a moment before adding with a bitter smile. Taehyung, P.S., when it comes to the paternity test of 10-year-old Kim Jiho. Mr. Kim Taehyung, you are not the father. Y/N's lips parted in shock, but no words came out. She was too stunned to speak. Taehyung, calm but deadly, Mr. Min? The will. Mr. Min swiftly stepped forward, presenting a file. Taehyung took out a single page, his eyes cold and unwavering. Without hesitation, he threw it in Yeri's face, the paper fluttering down as she stared in disbelief. Taehyung, voice sharp, cutting through the tension, this is a copy of my new will. It clearly states that 70% of my assets will belong to my wife, Kim Y/N, and the children I will have with her. The remaining 30% will be donated to charities. Yeri's face drained of color as she scrambled to catch the paper. Taehyung, with finality, in short, I've removed Jiho's name from my will. Completely. The room was silent, tension thick in the air as Y/N remained frozen in shock, and Yeri's hands trembled as she clutched the damning paper. Yeri, pleading, Taehyung, no. You can't do this. Jiho is your daughter, she needs you. Please, don't punish her for my mistakes. She's innocent. Please. She dropped to her knees, clutching the paper as if it were her lifeline, tears streaming down her face. Y/N watched in stunned silence, while Taehyung remained unmoved, his expression hardened. Yeri, sobbing, I made mistakes, but Jiho doesn't deserve this. Taehyung, please reconsider. I'll do anything. I'll leave, I won't bother you again, just please, don't take away her future. Taehyung's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice cold and firm. Taehyung, her future isn't being taken away, Yeri. It's being redirected. I gave you chances, and you failed. Jiho deserves a proper upbringing, one that isn't poisoned by lies and manipulation. She's still young, she has time to change, but not under your influence. Yeri crawled closer, her hands reaching for Taehyung's leg, desperation dripping from every word. Yeri, begging, please, please don't do this. I know I've been wrong, but I can change. I can be better. For Jiho's sake, Taehyung, give me one more chance. I swear I'll fix everything. Yeri's sobs grew louder as she clung to his leg, her pride crumbling into nothing. Y/N watched, torn between sympathy for the broken woman in front of her and pride in Taehyung's resolve. Yeri, desperately, I'll do anything, Taehyung, just don't take her away from me, please. Taehyung's voice cut through the chaos with a firm edge. Taehyung, coldly, Yeri, if you don't leave now, I will call security. I won't tolerate any more of this behavior. Jiho is not my daughter, so I have no reason to keep her. You can take her with you. Yeri glared at him, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were filled with defiance as she hugged Jiho tighter. Jiho looked up at her mother, her anger only escalating. She pointed a trembling finger at Y/N, her voice laced with venom. Taehyung's expression hardened as he watched the scene unfold. His patience was wearing thin, and he took a step toward Yeri. Taehyung, commandingly, get your things and leave. You and Jiho are no longer welcome here. I won't tolerate any more of this hostility. Jiho turned to Y/N, her eyes blazing with anger. Jiho, bitterly, you're just a whore who took my dad from us. I wish you'd never come into our lives. You're ruining everything. Taehyung's eyes narrowed, his frustration clear as he watched Jiho's outburst. He clenched his fists, trying to maintain his composure. Taehyung, calm but firm, enough, Jiho. You will leave with your mother. This behavior is unacceptable. If you can't behave respectfully, then I suggest you and Yeri leave now. Jiho's eyes were still fixed on Y/N, her hatred unabated. As they walked out, her venomous words echoed in the hall. Jiho, shouting, you're going to pay for this. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. The door slammed behind them, leaving the room in stunned silence. Taehyung turned to Y/N, his expression a mix of regret and concern. Taehyung, softly, I'm sorry you had to see that. Are you all right? Y/N nodded slowly, still in shock from the confrontation. Taehyung reached out to hold her hand, trying to offer comfort as they both tried to process the emotional whirlwind that had just occurred. Y/N slowly wrapped her arms around Taehyung, finding solace in his embrace. Taehyung hugged her back tightly, his arms offering a sense of protection and comfort after the emotional storm they had just weathered. The staff, who had been silent witnesses to the scene, avoided making eye contact. They looked down, their expressions a mix of sympathy and discomfort, as they gave the couple space to find their moment of vulnerability away from prying eyes. Taehyung gently stroked Y/N's back, his voice barely a whisper as he spoke. Taehyung, softly, I never wanted you to see this side of things. I'm so sorry for all the pain and anger you've had to endure. Y/N tightened her hold on him, taking comfort in the warmth and strength he provided. She nodded, her voice choked with emotion. Y/N, it's okay, Taehyung. We'll get through this together. As they held each other, the intensity of the situation began to settle, leaving them both to find solace in each other's arms. The staff, still respectfully out of sight, continued their duties quietly, allowing the couple their moment of shared strength and intimacy. One month later. The last month had been difficult for the Kim family. Taehyung's parents struggled to accept the truth that Jiho wasn't their grandchild. The remorse and hard times began to fade as everyone slowly accepted the reality and started moving on. Taehyung initially pressed charges but withdrew them later. For Y/N, she believed that their misery would follow them. Karma doesn't knock, it arrives uninvited. Y/N understood how hard it had been for Taehyung. The storm he had kept inside for months was finally surfacing. His anger was on edge over the past few days, but Y/N remained patient with him. Whenever his temper flared, all it took was a hug from her or the simple act of holding his hand, and his anger would dissipate. Y/N had been Taehyung's rock throughout this ordeal, making him fall for her even more. If that was possible, he was already completely smitten. Their intimacy remained as strong as ever. This couple couldn't go without each other. The fact that Taehyung still kept his hand on her lap, holding her thigh during dinner, was proof of how inseparable they were. While Y/N silently prayed to become pregnant, Taehyung was calm, confidently joking that his sperm were so strong that she might already be pregnant, his overconfidence always making her smile. It was evening. YN came home after a hard day. It was hard to listen to those heart-withering stories of women, but taught sense of pride to find how they overcome and fought was a hope to keep going. Today, Y/N was overjoyed. A 16-year-old victim, once disowned by her own family due to someone's cruel desires, had found refuge at Y/N's NGO. Today, justice was served. The culprits were caught and, in the court hearing, sentenced to life imprisonment. The accomplices, once the girl's so-called best friends who had betrayed her out of jealousy, were sentenced to 7 years behind bars. Y/N was beyond thankful to Taehyung for his unwavering support throughout the ordeal. Y/N stepped out of the shower, feeling refreshed, a soft smile playing on her lips as she thought about the day. As she towel-dried her hair, her phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, her smile deepened when she saw the caller ID, husband. A wave of warmth rushed through her, and she answered the call, cheeks slightly flushed. At bedroom on phone Y/N, hey. Her voice was soft, shy, and full of happiness, something Taehyung picked up on instantly. Taehyung. May I know the reason behind this smile? His deep honeyed voice was like music to her ears, wrapping her in warmth. Y/N, how do you know I'm smiling? She teased, already knowing how well he could read her. Taehyung, it's a secret. Now, tell me. His voice was playful yet curious, and she could imagine the way his eyes would crinkle when he smiled. Y/N, today, I realized something. She paused, letting the moment linger, making him wait just a little. Taehyung, and what is that? He asked, his voice laced with genuine interest. Y/N, that we're made for each other. She said it softly, but with all the conviction in the world. Taehyung, that's awful, he replied, a hint of teasing mischief in his tone. Y/N, huh? What do you mean? We're not made for each other? She asked, slightly taken aback by his response. Taehyung, I didn't say that. What I meant was, I realized that a year ago. It took you long enough. His playful banter eased her confusion, making her laugh softly. Y/N, Tae, she said his name, filled with affection. Taehyung. He hummed in response, waiting for her to continue. Y/N, thank you. She whispered, her voice filled with sincerity and gratitude. Taehyung, for what? His tone softened, sensing the emotion behind her words. Y/N, for coming into my life, for making it beautiful. Sarangi. Her confession was simple, yet it carried all the weight of her love for him. Taehyung, what is it? He asked, though he knew she wasn't finished yet. Y/N, if it wasn't for you, Millie wouldn't have gotten justice. She referred to the 16-year-old victim they had helped, her voice full of gratitude for all he had done. Taehyung, then you shouldn't thank me. She was part of this nation, and all the women in this nation are my sisters and mothers, except you. His words brought a soft laugh from Y/N, who felt her heart swell with love for him. Taehyung, anyways, what were you doing? He asked, steering the conversation in a lighter direction. Y/N, just took a shower and was drying my hair. She replied, her tone casual but with a hint of mischief. Taehyung. Why, baby? I'm just nearby, we could have taken a shower together. His voice turned teasing, making her giggle softly. Y/N, tomorrow, maybe. She teased back, enjoying their playful banter. Taehyung, I'm just nearby. Get ready, we're going out for dinner. His tone became more serious, but still filled with warmth. Y/N, official dinner? She asked, curious about the sudden plans. Taehyung, no, baby. It's just you and me. His voice softened, making her smile grow even wider. Y/N, okay. I'll get ready then. She replied, feeling a rush of excitement for their private time together. Y/N quickly ended the call, leaving Taehyung momentarily confused. He stared at the screen for a second before letting out a soft chuckle. Her playful energy had a way of easing the tension in his heart. It felt like things were slowly returning to normal, a sense of peace settling over their lives. But even as he smiled, a part of him still ached for Jihoo. He couldn't deny the connection he once felt, but what she did to Y/N, that was something he couldn't easily forgive. The thought of Jihoo's betrayal lingered, and then, Mr. Kang's desperate plea for help came to mind. The man was on the brink of bankruptcy, and once, Taehyung's family would have stepped in without hesitation. But after the truth about Jihoo and Yeri had surfaced, they wanted nothing to do with either of them. Yeri had taken advantage of him one drunken night, lying beside him and pretending something had happened between them. But he knew better now, she had already been pregnant with her lover's baby. Taehyung shook his head, shrugging off the dark thoughts. His focus returned to Y/N. He knew how much she wanted a baby, and part of him wanted that too. He wanted to give her everything she desired. But at the same time, he couldn't help but think about how much the world still needed her. It wasn't that he didn't want children, but he saw so much potential in Y/N, so many dreams she hadn't yet achieved. He didn't want to see her become a typical housewife, tied down by responsibilities before she fulfilled her aspirations. Y/N had made it clear, though, if they were together, she could do anything. She had a way of making him believe that anything was possible. But still, he was scared. What if their child ended up like Jihoo? What if a lack of attention turned their baby into someone lost, confused, and angry? These fears gnawed at him, but he also knew that Y/N's strength would guide them. They had come so far together, and no matter what lay ahead, they would face it side by side. Time skip. Taehyung had reserved a private cabin to ensure their evening would be free from interruptions. The soft lighting and intimate atmosphere set the perfect mood for a quiet dinner together. Y/N, smiling, savoring her meal, I love it. Taehyung, watching her with a soft smile, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Y/N, playfully, swallowing her food, well, I have a surprise for you. Taehyung frowned slightly, curious, as he continued chewing. He watched as Y/N reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, handing it to him. Taehyung, unfolding the paper, did you book tickets to Italy? I'm sorry, but my schedule, he suddenly stopped, his eyes widening as he read the paper's contents. He swallowed hard, and then looked up at Y/N, overwhelmed this. Y/N tilted her head, watching his reaction closely. Y/N, gently, why? You're not happy? Taehyung closed his eyes briefly, trying to process the overwhelming emotions. He stood up, pulled Y/N to her feet, and wrapped her in a tight hug. She giggled softly at his reaction. Y/N, teasing, what happened? Shocked? Taehyung broke the hug and cupped her face, his eyes searching hers, filled with awe. Taehyung, breathless, when did you find out? Y/N, grinning, you won't tease me or laugh. Taehyung, serious, no, why would I? Y/N, blushing, I've been taking pregnancy tests every 3 days for the past month. Taehyung couldn't hold back his laughter. It bubbled out of him, light and joyful. Y/N, pouting, whining, you said you wouldn't laugh. Taehyung quickly tried to stifle his laughter, raising a hand apologetically. Taehyung, grinning, sorry. Y/N, continuing, it came out positive, so I went to the hospital for confirmation. The doctor performed a urine test, and the results came in yesterday evening. Taehyung, softly, almost whispering, why didn't you tell me sooner? Y/N, smiling warmly, I picked up the results today, and I wanted to tell you in person. Taehyung's mouth formed a soft O, as the reality of the situation settled in. He gazed at Y/N, her excitement and happiness contagious, making his heart swell with love. Y/N, with a twinkle in her eyes, today is the best day of my life. Her words made Taehyung smile even wider. He pulled her into another embrace, whispering softly against her hair. Taehyung, ours, too, ours. 9 months later, breaking news: President KIMTAEHYUNG has become the proud father of a baby boy. Mrs. Kim Y/N gave birth to a healthy son. For more updates, keep watching THV Fanfics. In the private hospital room, Taehyung carefully spoon-fed Y/N some soup while she lay in bed, recovering. Y/N, grimacing slightly, how tasteless. Mrs. Kim, gently, it will help you gain your strength back, dear. Taehyung, firm but loving, you can throw all the tantrums you want later. For now, finish this. Just as Y/N was about to respond, there was a knock on the door. Taehyung, without looking up, come in. A guard entered the room and stood at attention. Guard, President Nim. Dr. Jean is here, if you allow. Taehyung, coolly. Suddenly, a familiar voice boomed from behind the guard. Dr. Jean, playfully, yeah, Taehyung. How could you not let me in? Dr. Jean walked in, a playful smirk on his face. Mr. Kim, Taehyung's father, chuckled from the corner of the room. Mr. Kim, teasingly, protocols, man. Dr. Jean, laughing, now even family has to follow protocols, huh? Everyone smiled as Dr. Jean checked on Y/N and the baby, ensuring everything was in order. Taehyung stepped out of the room to take a call. His phone had been buzzing non-stop with messages and congratulatory calls since the birth of his son. Security personnel surrounded the area, ensuring the safety and privacy of the Kim family. After all, this wasn't just any baby, it was the president's child, and the world was watching. As Taehyung paced back and forth, talking on the phone, his mind kept drifting back to Y/N and their newborn son. Despite the whirlwind of attention, his heart was filled with peace, knowing that their family had just begun its most beautiful chapter yet. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the hallway, making Taehyung turn sharply. Jihoo, shouting, Daddy. Taehyung froze for a moment, recognizing the voice. Jihoo ran towards him and hugged his waist tightly, clinging to him as if she belonged there. Yeri stood nearby, but her presence didn't go unnoticed. Taehyung, coldly, hanging up his phone, what are you doing here? His voice was distant, laced with irritation. Jihoo, innocently, Grandpa is sick, so we're here for him, but why are you here, Daddy? Are you sick? Taehyung, shortly, no. Before Taehyung could say more, Yeri tried to interject. Yeri, Taehyung, she just. Taehyung, cutting her off, voice ice cold, take her and leave. Jihoo clung tighter to Taehyung's leg as Yeri reached out to take her hand. Jihoo, defiantly, no. I won't go with Mom. Taehyung, sternly, and why is that? Jihoo, pouting, I don't like being with her. She's sending me to a school for poor kids, and we live in such a small house that I can't even breathe. She won't let me buy the things I want. She says they're too expensive. She's so poor, Daddy. I want to go with you. Author's note, oopsie, I forgot to mention that the Kong family went bankrupt 5 months ago. But Taehyung didn't pay attention to any of that, he was too busy taking care of the country and the storm that was brewing in his own home with Y/N. Taehyung, dismissing, whatever the situation is, you need to go with your mom. Jihoo, stubbornly, but Daddy, I don't like it. I want to go with you. Yeri, firmly, Jihoo. He is not your daddy. Jihoo, angrily, he is. Taehyung, harshly, Jihoo, your mom is right. Now go. Don't make a scene. Jihoo, shouting, no. You are my daddy. Only you. Taehyung's patience snapped as he looked at Yeri. Taehyung, Yeri, take her, but before Yeri could act, Jihoo screamed, her words venomous and filled with spite. Jihoo, what they say in the news is right, you had a stupid baby with that WH0 re. That was the final straw. Taehyung stormed over to Jihoo, grabbing her by the shoulders, his voice dangerously low and controlled. Taehyung, firmly, I had a baby with my wife. That baby is mine, and for now, I am only his dad. We have no relation. If there is a WH0 here, it's your mother, who slept around while she was still my wife. You should be ashamed of yourself, you're the daughter of a cheater, yet look at your attitude. You deserve to go to a local school, wear low-market clothes, and live in a small house because that's your reality. I am not your father and never was. The truth is, you're a poor girl who can't accept her reality. If I hear you calling my wife or my baby any names again, I will send you to prison, where there will be no school, no clothes of choice, and nothing. He turned around, walking away from her, but suddenly, Jihoo rushed forward and hugged him from behind, crying desperately. Jihoo, sobbing, please, please adopt me, daddy. I'll be a good girl. I'll call your wife mom, and I'll take care of your baby. Please, daddy, please. Taehyung's face hardened as he gestured to his security team. They quickly moved in, pulling Jihoo away despite her loud screams. Her cries echoed down the hallway as they dragged her out, her voice fading as they took her out of sight. Y/N noticed the commotion outside and looked at Taehyung when he returned to the room. Y/N, what was happening outside? Taehyung just smiled, walking over to sit beside her, brushing off the tension. Taehyung, softly, Yeri has successfully made Jihoo just like her. Y/N frowned slightly, confused. Taehyung, sighing, a gold digger, materialistic girl. Mrs. Kim, interrupting, Aish. Why discuss them? Tell me, what's the name of my grandson? Y/N and Taehyung exchanged a glance, a soft smile spreading across their faces. Meanwhile, outside Yeri stood by the car, watching Jihoo being placed inside, regret written all over her face. She had thought that using her daughter would win Taehyung back, but now, seeing Jihoo's harsh words and Taehyung's cold rejection, she realized how far she had fallen. The reality of her choices weighed heavily on her as she turned away from the hospital, knowing she had lost everything, Taehyung, the life she had once had, and now, even her daughter's innocence. But it was too late. The days seemed to pass quickly for Taehyung and Y/N. Despite the challenges, they found solace in their small family moments. Every night, they slept peacefully, with their little ball of happiness, Kim Tae-woo, nestled between them. Tae-woo was a handful, mischievous, curious, and endlessly adorable. His chubby cheeks were a testament to Taehyung's meticulous care during Y/N's pregnancy. Despite juggling the responsibilities of an entire country, Taehyung had always made time to ensure Y/N's diet, yoga, and cravings were perfectly managed. The result was their little bundle of joy, Tae-woo, a cute and chubby baby who brought endless laughter into their lives. But today, Taehyung's mischief had reached new heights. Y/N, Aisha. Tae-woo. Ah. She sighed in frustration, looking at the little troublemaker who was sitting in the middle of Taehyung's shattered shoe collection. Tae-woo, with his goofy smile and the tiny teeth just breaking through, giggled at his mother. He seemed proud of his accomplishment. Y/N, picking him up, you are a bad boy, you know that? She held him close, unable to stay angry at his adorable face. Why do you always want to climb inside the cupboard? Tae-woo giggled again, his innocent eyes sparkling with mischief. Y/N. Wei. She gently scolded him while hugging him closer. I left you alone for 5 minutes, and you already turned the wardrobe into your playground. She glanced at the mess around her, Taehyung's designer shoes scattered all over the floor, making room for Taehyung's tiny self in the open cupboard. Despite her frustration, Y/N couldn't help but smile. Her little boy was growing fast, and his curiosity seemed boundless. Just then, the door creaked open, and Taehyung entered the room. He paused, taking in the scene before him, Y/N sitting on the floor with Taewoo in her lap, surrounded by his scattered shoes. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Taehyung, teasingly, what happened here? He leaned against the doorframe, his deep voice laced with amusement. Y/N, sighing dramatically, your son happened. He decided your shoes were in his way and needed to be relocated. Taehyung chuckled and walked over to them. He crouched down next to Y/N and ruffled Taewoo's hair. Taehyung. Ah. So you're a little troublemaker, huh? He kissed the top of Taewoo's head. Just like your mom. Y/N, playfully hitting him, yeah. Don't compare me to this little tornado. Taehyung's laughter echoed in the room as he sat down beside them. He looked at the mess again but shrugged it off. His priorities had shifted long ago. Shoes could be replaced, but moments like this, seeing his family happy, were priceless. Taehyung, softly, seeing you both like this, it makes everything else fade away. The stress, the responsibilities, nothing matters as long as I have you too. Y/N's heart swelled at his words. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence. Y/N, whispering, we're lucky to have you, Taewoo, unaware of the tender moment between his parents, babbled something incoherent, causing both Taehyung and Y/N to laugh. Taehyung, and I'm lucky to have both of you. He kissed Y/N's forehead gently. For a moment, everything was perfect. The challenges of being parents, the stress of the outside world, all of it melted away in the comfort of their little family. But, of course, the peace didn't last long. Taewoo wriggled out of Y/N's arms, determined to continue his mischief. He crawled toward the open cupboard again, making both Taehyung and Y/N laugh. Y/N, laughing, no, you don't, young man. Your cupboard adventures are over for today. As she scooped him up once more, Taehyung stood up and started picking up the scattered shoes. Taehyung, teasing, maybe we should get him his own cupboard. It seems like ours isn't enough for him anymore. Y/N, smiling, maybe, or maybe we just need to baby-proof this place better. Taehyung nodded, a thoughtful look crossing his face as he continued cleaning up. But underneath the teasing and the playful banter, both knew that no matter what challenges came their way, whether it was Taewoo's mischief or the demands of Taehyung's presidency, they would face them together. Camera zooms in on a small, run-down local school. The playground is filled with children, but Jihoo, dressed in an old, worn-out uniform, stands alone, her head hung low. She feels the weight of the stares, the whispers that are not so quiet, and the mocking laughter that follows her everywhere she goes. Jihoo, thinking, how did it come to this? She bites her lip, trying to hold back tears. Her once perfectly manicured nails are now chipped, and her hands tremble slightly. Suddenly, a group of girls approaches her, smirking. The leader of the group, Minji, a girl with long braids, steps forward, blocking Jihoo's path. Minji, mockingly, look who it is. The princess of the playground. Oh wait, you're not a princess anymore, are you, Jihoo? The other girls giggle, their eyes full of judgment. Jihoo clenches her fists, trying to walk past them, but Minji steps in front of her again. Jihoo, softly, please, just let me go. Minji, laughing, and why should we? You never let anyone go when you were on top. Remember how you used to treat us? Acting like you were better than everyone else. Well, look at you now. Camera zooms in on Jihoo's face, her eyes welling up with tears. She remembers all the times she treated others poorly, the way she belittled them because she thought she was superior. Now, she feels the sting of karma. Jihoo, whispering to herself, I deserve this. I was horrible. Minji notices Jihoo's vulnerability and pushes her lightly on the shoulder, causing her to stumble back. Minji, don't think you can cry your way out of this. This is what you get for being a bully. Jihoo finally breaks down, her knees hitting the dirt as she sobs quietly. The girls leave her behind, laughing as they walk away. Camera zooms out on Jihoo, sitting alone on the ground, hugging her knees to her chest. The once confident, wealthy girl now feels the weight of her actions, the loneliness of being on the other side. Karma has come full circle, and Ji-hoo realizes she can't escape the consequences of her past. Taehyung was in his sleek, modern office, working with his secretary. They were discussing some business matters when Taehyung's personal phone rang. Secretary, Mr. Kim, about the new project. Taehyung.
Ah.
Excuse me. I need to take this. He answered the call, his expression immediately shifting to concern as he saw Y/N's name on the screen. He motioned for his secretary to step aside, creating some distance. Taehyung, hello? Y/N, anxiously, Tae. Taehyung's brow furrowed in worry, sensing something was wrong. Taehyung, what's wrong? Are you okay? Y/N, taking a deep breath, almost crying, Yeri, she became a meal for a hungry monster. Taehyung froze, his eyes widening in shock. He struggled to process Y/N's distressing words. Taehyung, where are you? Y/N, at my shelter, with Ji-hoo. Taehyung, what about her? Y/N, she's the eyewitness, Tae. She saw everything. Taehyung's grip on the phone tightened as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. His heart ached at the thought of a 12-year-old witnessing such horror. Taehyung, oh God. Y/N, Yeri's in the ICU. Officer Lee brought Ji-hoo to the shelter because she's too shocked and scared to be around any men, you know how police stations are full of them. He thought it'd be safer for her here. Taehyung ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing as he considered the next steps. Y/N, should I go to the hospital to see Yeri? Taehyung, no. Let the police investigate first. Ji-hoo could still be in danger. I'll have Secretary Choi arrange for her to be sent to a safe house. Y/N, I can take her home, Tae. Taehyung, no need. Y/N's frustration was evident. She knew Taehyung's protective instincts were strong, but she also knew Ji-hoo was not the same girl she once was. Y/N, Taehyung, she's not that Ji-hoo anymore. She won't harm Tae-woo. She's scared, shaken, and I really think it would help if you came to see her. Taehyung considered her words, his expression softening. He let out a deep sigh, running a hand down his face. Taehyung. Y/N, what do you mean? I'm going home with her. Meet us there as soon as you can. Taehyung, as you order, Mrs. Kim. Taehyung ended the call, his mind already planning how to ensure Ji-hoo's safety and how to handle the situation with Yeri. He stood up, calling his secretary back in, his face now a mask of determination. Taehyung and Y/N's home is calm, the kind of calm that feels almost unnatural given the storm of emotions brewing within. Taehyung, with a serious but gentle demeanor, carefully leads Ji-hoo through the front door. Ji-hoo's eyes dart around nervously, overwhelmed by the strange mix of comfort and the unsettling reality of her recent trauma. Her small hands clutch the sides of her jacket, and her gaze remains fixed on the floor. Taehyung, softly, Ji-hoo, I know this place might feel different and strange right now, but you're safe here. We're going to take good care of you. Ji-hoo's eyes well up with tears as she slowly lifts her head, meeting Taehyung's gaze. The fear in her eyes is palpable, a stark reminder of the horrifying events she's witnessed. Taehyung kneels down to her level, his face filled with empathy and understanding. Taehyung, gently, I'm really sorry, Ji-hoo. I know you're scared, and I wish there was something more I could do to take away what you've been through. Ji-hoo, whispering, voice trembling, I didn't want to see any of that. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to be a bad girl. Taehyung's heart aches as he listens to Ji-hoo's broken words. He places a comforting hand on her shoulder, his expression softening even more. Taehyung, reassuringly, you're not a bad girl, Ji-hoo. What happened wasn't your fault. No one should have to see what you did. You're brave for facing it, and we're here for you. Y/N approaches quietly, her own heart heavy with concern for Ji-hoo. She reaches out and gently holds Ji-hoo's other hand, offering a supportive squeeze. Y/N, softly, Ji-hoo, it's okay to feel this way. What happened was terrible, and it's okay to be upset. You're safe now, and we're going to help you through this. Jihoo, crying softly, I'm so scared. I keep seeing it in my dreams. The monster, he was so horrible. Taehyung's eyes reflect a mix of sadness and determination. He pulls Jihoo into a gentle hug, holding her close in a tender embrace. Taehyung, whispering, you don't have to go through this alone. We're going to make sure you're safe and that you get the help you need. I promise you, things will get better. Jihoo clings to Taehyung, her sobs muffled against his shoulder. The warmth of his embrace provides a small measure of comfort amidst the storm of her emotions. Y/N, softly, we're going to get you through this, Jihoo. You're not alone. We'll be by your side every step of the way. The hospital room is dimly lit, with the soft beep of heart monitors filling the silence. Yeri lies on the hospital bed, her face pale and her breaths shallow. Despite the heavy sedation, her eyes remain open, filled with regret and sorrow. Jihoo sits beside the bed, her face streaked with tears, clutching Yeri's hand as if trying to hold on to the last fragments of her fading presence. Y/N stands quietly in the corner, her heart heavy with a mix of sadness and tension. Yeri, her voice weak but clear, Jihoo, tearfully, Mom, please, don't, Yeri, struggling to speak, I need to tell you. I need to make things right before I go, Jihoo, sobbing, don't talk like that, you're going to be okay. Yeri, shaking her head slowly, no. Jihoo, listen. I'm so sorry for everything. I should have been better. Jihoo's sobs grow louder, but she tries to steady her voice, desperate to hear her mother's comforting words. Yeri, softly, I was wrong, so wrong. I let my greed and selfishness consume me. I didn't listen to the good people around me. I treated everyone poorly. Yeri's gaze shifts to Y/N, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and regret. Yeri, whispering, Y/N. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I lied. I lied about Tae being Jihoo's father. I was selfish, and I hurt you more than I can ever make up for. Y/N's eyes are misty, her hands clasped tightly together. She nods, acknowledging Yeri's apology but unable to find the words to respond. Yeri, turning her gaze back to Jihoo, my dear. I want you to be a better person than I was. Don't let material things rule your life, always respect and listen to what Tae and Y/N say. Jihoo, crying, Mom, please, don't go. Yeri, her voice growing fainter, I hope you can forgive me. I hope you'll be kind and loving, even when it's hard. Yeri's eyes begin to close, her breathing becoming more labored. She makes one final effort to speak, her voice barely a whisper. Yeri, whispering, forgive me for the pain I caused. I'm sorry. As Yeri takes her last breath, her eyes close gently, leaving Jihoo holding her hand, tears streaming down her face. The heart monitor emits a steady, low beep before falling silent, signaling the end of Yeri's suffering. Y/N approaches Jihoo, gently pulling her into a comforting embrace. The room is filled with a heavy silence, broken only by Jihoo's quiet sobs and Y/N's soothing words. Y/N, whispering softly, it's okay, Jihoo. We'll get through this together. They got the culprit. It was Yeri's one of X. Yeri used him for money and he took revenge, but he did something unforgivable. A few days have passed since Yeri's passing, and the atmosphere in the Kim household is somber. Jihoo has become a shadow of her former self, quiet and withdrawn, rarely speaking or interacting with anyone. The once lively girl now spends most of her time in solitude, lost in her own thoughts. Y/N watches her with growing concern, her heart aching for the troubled child. As night falls, Taehyung and Y/N sit together in their bedroom. The room is dimly lit by a soft bedside lamp, casting a warm glow over their faces. Taehyung is flipping through a stack of papers, while Y/N, unable to focus on her work, stares out of the window, lost in thought. Y/N, breaking the silence as Taehyung, I'm really worried about Jihoo. Taehyung, looking up, what do you mean? Y/N, sighing, she's not the same anymore. She's so quiet and distant. I think she needs professional help. We should consider taking her to a psychiatrist. Taehyung, nodding, I agree. She needs support to work through her trauma. Y/N, hesitant, but I don't think it's necessary for her to leave the house. I can take her to the psychiatrist and bring her back here daily. Taehyung, firmly, I think it would be better if she stayed at the shelter. It's not just about therapy. The environment there will provide her with the support she needs. She'll be around other kids and women who have gone through similar experiences. Seeing how they've overcome their difficulties might help her heal faster. Y/N, surprised, but why does she have to stay there? We can manage here. And if she's there, it means she won't be with us every day. Taehyung, explaining, if she stays here, she'll see us together every day, including Taewoo. She might feel jealous or think that if things were different, she might have been happier. It's important for her to have a neutral space where she can focus on her recovery without these constant reminders. Y/N, frustrated, I understand that, but isn't it a bit too extreme? We can manage it here, and I can take her for daily sessions. Taehyung, gently, it's not just about the daily sessions. Jihoo has been conditioned to think a certain way by Yeri. It will take time to change that mindset. At the shelter, she will be away from the familiar environment and the daily interactions with us, which might be affecting her more than we realize. Plus, seeing other kids and women in similar situations might provide her with a sense of understanding and solidarity. Y/N, pausing, reflecting on Taehyung's words, you have a point. It's just hard to let go. Taehyung, softly, I know it's difficult. But it's about doing what's best for Jihoo. We want her to recover and become a better person. We will do everything we can to support her, but sometimes that means making tough decisions. Y/N, sighing, resigned, all right. If you think this is the best way, then we'll do it. Taehyung, reassuringly, we'll make sure she gets the best care. And we'll be there for her every step of the way. Y/N nods, though her expression remains pensive. The conversation ends, and they sit together in silence, each lost in their thoughts about Jihoo's future and the challenges ahead. The scene fades with Y/N and Taehyung sharing a moment of understanding, both determined to support Jihoo in her journey towards healing, even if it means making difficult choices. The morning sun casts a golden glow over the Kim household. The living room is filled with the sounds of Taehyung and Y/N enjoying a playful moment with their baby, Taewoo. Taehyung, with his usual infectious laughter, is making funny faces at Taewoo, who responds with delighted giggles. Y/N stands nearby, her heart full as she watches the scene unfold. Taehyung, laughing, peekaboo. Where did you go? Taewoo claps his tiny hands and giggles, clearly enjoying his father's playful antics. Y/N, with a warm smile, is busy preparing breakfast, but her gaze often drifts towards the heartwarming scene. Taehyung, playfully, who's a happy little baby today? Taewoo's laughter fills the room, making the atmosphere joyful and lively. Y/N sets the breakfast table with pancakes and coffee, her movements light and cheerful. In the corner of the room, Jihoo sits quietly, her expression a mix of jealousy and irritation. She watches the interaction between Taehyung, Y/N, and Taewoo with a cold, distant gaze. The contrast between her demeanor and the lively atmosphere is stark. Jihoo's eyes occasionally dart towards Taewoo, a hint of bitterness evident in her gaze. Jihoo, muttering to herself, they're so perfect, so happy, her jealousy and irritation are palpable as she observes Taewoo receiving all the attention and affection. The sight of Taehyung and Y/N interacting so lovingly with their child only deepens her feelings of exclusion and resentment. Taehyung notices Jihoo's intense stare and walks over to her, still holding Taewoo, who is now reaching out towards Jihoo with a curious gaze. Taehyung, gently, good morning, Jihoo. How are you doing today? Jihoo, coolly, I'm fine. Taehyung, trying to be encouraging, why don't you come over and join us for breakfast? It's a family gathering, and we'd love for you to be part of it. Jihoo's gaze remains fixed on Taewoo, her jealousy simmering beneath the surface. She can't shake the feeling of being an outsider, watching a scene that she wishes she could be a part of. Y/N, observing the interaction from the kitchen, walks over with a concerned expression. She places a hand on Jihoo's shoulder. Y/N, gently, Jihoo, we really want you to feel at home here. It's important for us to make sure you're comfortable and happy. Jihoo, sighing, I don't belong here. It's clear that Taewoo and we don't mix well. Y/N's concern deepens as she watches Jihoo's struggle. She exchanges a worried glance with Taehyung, who nods slightly in understanding. The tension in the room is evident, and Y/N realizes that Jihoo's presence is affecting the family's harmony. Y/N, softly, Taehyung and I have been thinking, maybe it would be best for Jihoo to stay at the shelter for a while. Jihoo's head snaps up, her eyes widening in surprise. She looks between Y/N and Taehyung, her feelings a turbulent mix of shock and sadness. Jihoo, hurt, you think I'm not welcome here? Taehyung, calmly, it's not about being unwelcome. It's about making sure you're in an environment where you can heal and adjust. The shelter has resources and other kids who have been through similar experiences. Y/N, trying to explain, it's important for you to be around others who understand what you're going through. It might help you feel better and allow you to see things from a different perspective. Jihoo's eyes fill with tears as she looks at Taewoo, who is now reaching out for her with a curious, innocent gaze. She realizes that her jealousy and bitterness might affect Taewoo negatively, and she doesn't want to be a source of discord in their home. Taehyung, gently, it's about giving you the space and support you need to heal. We want to help you, but we also need to think about the well-being of our family. Jihoo nods slowly, her face a mask of resignation. She understands the reasoning but feels the sting of rejection deeply. She glances one last time at Taewoo, who is now reaching out to her with a small smile. Jihoo, softly, all right. I'll go to the shelter. As Jihoo prepares to leave, the atmosphere in the room is somber. Taehyung and Y/N watch her with a mix of concern and sadness. They hope that this decision will ultimately lead to a better outcome for Jihoo and their family. The scene fades with Jihoo walking away, her emotions a complex blend of resignation and hope for a brighter future. The morning's joyful interactions have given way to a more serious tone, highlighting the challenges of balancing family dynamics and individual healing. Hey, everyone, I know some of you might be confused or even frustrated with how Y/N is handling things, so let me clear a few things up, especially for those who think Y/N is being overly emotional or that Jihoo is the villain here. First off, Y/N isn't just reacting emotionally. She's a social worker, and she deals with traumatic situations like this every day. She understands how deeply affected Jihoo must be after witnessing her mom's tragic situation and then losing her in such a horrible way. This isn't a small thing for anyone, let alone a 12-year-old. That's why Y/N is so concerned about Jihoo's mental health. When Y/N suggested keeping Jihoo with them, it wasn't because she was being naive or emotional. It was because, for over 10 years, Taehyung has been the only father figure Jihoo has known. In this tough situation, Y/N believed that Taehyung's presence could help Jihoo heal faster. Remember, Jihoo still doesn't know who her real father is, she's been through enough, and Y/N just wanted to provide her with stability. Now, let's talk about Jihoo. She wasn't a villain in this story. She was just a kid who had been manipulated to the point where she believed Y/N was the one breaking up her family. All of her misbehavior and harsh actions were a reflection of what she was taught by her mother. No matter how badly Jihoo acted, no child deserves to go through what she's experienced. And yes, Jihoo was jealous of Taewoo, but that's understandable too. After all, she's just a child who's seen her world turned upside down. What Jihoo needed most was love, support, and a chance to heal. So, in short, Y/N wasn't being dumb or overly emotional, she was thinking about Jihoo's well-being, even if it meant making hard decisions. And Jihoo wasn't a villain, she was just a hurt kid trying to find her way after a lot of pain and confusion. Honestly, no one seems to be giving Taehyung the praise he deserves. Let's talk about how he's handling things, because his character is definitely more than just good looks and power. Taehyung is shown to be incredibly mature and sensible, especially when dealing with situations as sensitive as Jihoo's. He doesn't let his emotions cloud his judgment, instead, he approaches everything with a level-headed, practical mindset. His decision-making process reflects a deeper understanding of what's best for everyone involved. While it's easy to focus on the drama or emotions, it's important to appreciate that Taehyung is portrayed as a responsible leader, both at work and in his personal life. He's not just reactive, he's proactive, always thinking ahead, and balancing his roles as a president, husband, and father. It's no small feat to write a character who embodies power, love, and wisdom all at once. So, let's give him the recognition he deserves for being the calm, collected and logical force that holds everything together. If you've overlooked this, now's the time to praise Taehyung for being the mature and thoughtful leader that he is. Okay, can we take a moment to appreciate how Taewoo is the unexpected star of the show? Taewoo, the tiny tornado, is a master of mischief. From stealing Taehyung's ties to turning Y/N's quiet moments into giggle fests, this little guy is a pro at interrupting romantic moments. He's the adorable chaos that keeps everyone on their toes, always ready with a grin. Now praise Taewoo in the comments section. It had been 5 months since that incident, and now it was 2025. Taehyung, sitting in his office, was in the middle of reviewing some documents when his phone buzzed. A smile spread across his face as he saw the caller ID. Taehyung, answering, Y/N, are you busy? Y/N, Taehyung, are you busy? Taehyung, no, I just wrapped up a meeting with the Minister of Education. Why? Y/N, sounding uncertain, you need to come here. Taehyung frowned, his smile fading as concern crept in. Taehyung, why? Is everything okay? Y/N, taking a deep breath, there's a man here who identified himself as Jihoo's biological father. Taehyung, his tone serious. His name? Y/N, Jason. Jason Park. Taehyung, pausing, let me talk to my secretary. I'll see if I can come. Y/N, okay. They hung up. Jason, sitting nearby, watched her closely. Jason, softly, is he coming? Y/N. Yeah, I think so. Jason, nodding, how is she? Y/N, she's okay, now. She's made friends here and likes it. It was traumatizing, but she's a brave girl. Jason smiled, but it was a bittersweet expression. Y/N, curiously, if you knew she was here, why did it take you 5 months? Jason sighed, leaning back in his seat. Jason, I'm married. Y/N, raising an eyebrow, oh, your wife didn't. Jason, cutting her off, I was married. Y/N's eyes widened in surprise. Y/N, oh. Jason, with a bitter laugh, she cheated on me, with my best friend. Y/N bit her lip, understanding the irony of the situation. Y/N, I don't think Jihoo will go with you, Jason. Jason, nodding, Mrs. Kim, that's why, is it possible you don't tell her I'm her real father? Just say I adopted her. Y/N, firmly, she has the right to know the truth. Jason, I know, but she might hate me. Y/N, sighing, I'll see what I can do, but first, let Taehyung come. Jason, she is here, that means she know Mr. Kim is not her father? YN. Yeah, but she recently started accepting him and stopped calling him dad too. Later, Taehyung arrived and after a thorough discussion, it was finalized, Jason would take Jihoo with him. The decision weighed heavily on everyone, but it was for Jihoo's future. Y/N, sitting in her office, called Jihoo inside. Jihoo entered with a bright smile on her face. There was no more hatred in her eyes, no resentment, just a softened heart. Jihoo, happily, Mrs. Kim, you called? Yes, she still called her that. In fact, everyone did. Y/N, smiling, though a bit hesitant, actually, I wanted to ask you something. She walked toward Jihoo and knelt down to be at her eye level. Jihoo, yes, please? Y/N, gently, I just wanted to know, what if one day your real dad comes here and asks you to go with him? What would you do? Taehyung and Jason, sitting on the side couch, watched with curiosity, their eyes locked on Jihoo, awaiting her answer. Jihoo went silent, her mind racing as she thought deeply. Jihoo, after a pause, if he is a good man, I will go with him. Jason smiled at her response, a hopeful glint in his eyes. Y/N, softly, and how will you know if he's a good man? Jihoo, with confidence, if you and Mr. Kim say so. Y/N, and you trust us. Jihoo, nodding earnestly. Because Mom said to always listen to what you and Mr. Kim will say. So, if you say he's a good man and will take good care of me, then I will go with him. Y/N took a deep breath and pointed toward Jason, who was looking at her with teary eyes. Y/N, gently, that's your dad. Jihoo was taken aback. She hadn't expected this at all. Her eyes darted between Jason, Taehyung, and Y/N, processing the revelation. Y/N, encouragingly, go on. Jihoo slowly walked toward Jason. He stood up, tears brimming in his eyes, and hugged her tightly, kissing the top of her head. Jason, choked with emotion, my baby. My Jihoo. I'm so sorry. He cried as he held her, but Jihoo remained silent, her small frame nestled in his arms. Taehyung walked over to Y/N, and they exchanged a knowing smile, both feeling a bittersweet sense of closure. Jason, gratefully, thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Kim, for taking care of her. I will always be indebted to you for this. Taehyung, calmly, no worries. Y/N, noticing Jihoo's quiet demeanor, gently crouched beside her. Y/N, softly, Jihoo. Are you not happy? Jihoo hesitated, looking up at her. Jihoo, uncertain, I am, but... Is he a good man? Taehyung crouched beside them, reassuring her. Taehyung, with a gentle smile, he is. He promised me that he'll take care of you. Y/N, nodding, and if anything happens, we'll bring you right back. Jason, lovingly, I'll always take care of you, baby. Jihoo looked at him, her expression softening into a smile. Jason gently wiped her tears away. Jason, smiling, let's go. But Jihoo's smile faded as she thought about leaving. Jihoo, hesitant, but... I have friends here. I have to leave them too? Y/N, quickly reassuring her, no. Who said that? You can always come back and meet them. Taehyung, playfully, yes, whenever you miss your friends, just tell your daddy. He'll bring you here, right? Jason, grinning, of course. In fact, I'll bring you here every weekend if you'd like. Jihoo's smile returned, but then she thought of something else. Jihoo, pouting playfully, but Mrs. Kim, don't forget to bring Taewoo too. Well, she got along with Taewoo a lot, come on, he is a lil goofy ball and too cute to resist. Y/N laughed, nodding. Y/N, well, looks like someone's gotten along with Taewoo. I'll bring him with me, I promise. Taehyung chuckled and turned to Jason. Taehyung, teasingly, Jason, whenever you decide to bring her here, make sure to let Y/N know so she can bring Taewoo too. Jason, smiling, absolutely. Jihoo's eyes sparkled with excitement. Jihoo, cheerfully, okay, then, let's go. Everyone smiled, relieved to see Jihoo's joy returning. As they walked toward the door, Jihoo clung to Jason's hand, looking up at him with newfound curiosity. Jihoo, curious as daddy, can we stop for ice cream on the way? Jason chuckled, his heart swelling with love. Jason, with a grin, ice cream? You bet. Anything for you. Jihoo's smile widened as they left together, her small hand firmly in his. Later that evening, at home. Y/N was sitting on the couch, her head resting on Taehyung's shoulder, a soft smile playing on her lips. The events of the day still lingered in her mind, but the relief of Jihoo finding her father filled her with a sense of peace. Taehyung wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her closer. Taehyung, smiling, you know. I'm proud of how everything turned out today. Jihoo finally found her dad. Y/N, nodding. Yeah. I'm happy for her. She deserves this chance at happiness. Taehyung leaned in closer, his lips brushing against her ear as he whispered. Taehyung, playfully, I was thinking, with Taewoo constantly interrupting us, how are we ever going to give him a sibling? Y/N blushed, playfully swatting his chest. Y/N, laughing, Tae. You're impossible. Taehyung chuckled, pulling her even closer. Taehyung, with a wink, I'm serious. Every time we get some alone time, our little devil decides it's the perfect moment to make his grand entrance. It's like he's got a radar for these things. Y/N shook her head, still smiling. Y/N, teasing back, maybe he's just trying to make sure you're not spoiling me too much. Taehyung, dramatically, spoiling you? I think it's the other way around. I'm the one who can't get enough of you, Mrs. Kim. Y/N laughed, leaning her head against his chest. Y/N, playfully, well, you'll just have to find a way to outsmart Taewoo. Taehyung sighed, pretending to be deep in thought. Taehyung, smirking, challenge accepted. But just so you know, the next time he interrupts us, I'm sending him to your parents' house for the weekend. That should give us enough time, don't you think? Y/N couldn't help but laugh, feeling lighter after all they had been through. Y/N, grinning, you're incorrigible, Tae. But I like the way you think. Taehyung leaned down, capturing her lips in a soft, lingering kiss. Taehyung, murmuring against her lips, and that's why you married me. Just as they were about to deepen the kiss, they heard the familiar sound of little feet padding across the floor. Taewoo appeared at the doorway, clutching his stuffed bunny and looking at them with wide, innocent eyes. Taewoo, sleepily, Mommy, what's THWT? Taehyung groaned, his head falling back against the couch as Y/N stifled a laugh. Y/N, whispering, looks like your plan will have to wait. Taehyung, with a resigned smile, well, at least he's cute. Y/N got up, scooping Taewoo into her arms as she shot Taehyung an amused look. Y/N, teasingly, come on, Mr. Kim. Time to tuck in our little interrupter. Taehyung stood up, following them to Taewoo's room, already plotting their next chance at some uninterrupted time together.